So this is Soft Skills, 8 Tech Skills for Breakfast. My name is Bradley Ball. I work on the Azure Fast Track product group for Microsoft. I'm a customer engineer, at least that's what my title is right now until they change it again pretty soon. This is a lot about me. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is SQL Balls because my last name is Ball. And as you can imagine, growing up as a young man, you get a lot of nicknames. And so I figured I'd get ahead of that when I got involved with the SQL community, and SQL Balls just seemed like a good idea. So if you go find me on LinkedIn, you'll get all that stuff. I work for Azure Fast Track. If you're interested in us, aka.ms/FTA, I'm going to go through this part pretty quick so I can just get to the meat and potatoes. We help people. We are a complimentary service. You have to apply to be in our program, but we help you if you are adopting Azure, making a migration, if you're making a change or a modernization. We have expertise in all these areas. I am on the data and AI side, but we have folks in the security, in the government, in the networking, and also in the app dev, and we are in 22 different countries. And we are most definitely, we have an EMEA team, we have an APAC team, I'm in the US team. So if wherever you are located, chances are we have teammates that will work with you. This is the Tales from the Field show. These are just some of the latest videos that we put out. aka.ms/TF, YouTube, that'll take you right over to our channel. All right, the agenda, soft skills. What are soft skills? It's communication, written skills, conflict resolution, ability to speak effectively, listening, and negotiation. Good night, everybody. So these things are really, really key. Now, there may be some global disconnect if we're not in front of a Western audience. So I want to make sure that I put that disclaimer out there. This will typically work, and these skills will work, and they transverse pretty well. The first book I'm going to recommend to you, and I'm going to have 3, is Stephen King on Writing a Memoir of the Craft. Stephen King, you say, interesting choice for a soft skills book, right? So he wrote this book when he was hit by a car back around 2000, almost died, and he was going through rehab. And he looked back at his life and he did a bit of a memoir. One of my favorite things that he does in his books is he will give you the description. He'll talk about, here's what my inspiration was. I had this dream. I pictured a man, a huge, gentle man in a cell, and he wasn't the danger. We were the danger to him. He was too sweet for this world to exist. And then he goes and he writes a book called The Green Mile. And John Coffey was that character. If you haven't read it, fantastic stuff, great movie. But this is essentially all of that. He's looking back at his life. He's telling you how he became a writer. If it's something you're interested in, he gives you his different tips. Key to doing that, write a lot and often. He has a toolbox of literary processes. He has a master's degree in writing. The man was an English teacher prior to actually becoming a writer. And so he talks about how to write properly. And he even goes through, how do you write an email? How do you make sure that you document things properly? How do you speak effectively? Take off prepositions. Don't put however, but sometimes. We may need to. Take out the wishy-washy language. Make sure that you're actually speaking in a very focused and intentful way. But he also talks about the telepathic connection between the author and the audience. There we go. Cue. Yeah. All right. So for an example of this, I would say the car was driving on a dark and stormy night through twisty roads. What color was the car? All of you know what color the car is. What type of storm was occurring? I didn't tell you what type of headlights. Were the headlights on? Was it night? Was it day? By leaving certain things out of communication, sometimes when I'm trying to get a message effectively over to an audience, it is better to allow them to engage and have their own emotional connection. If I give too many details, sometimes it can actually begin to parse things out to where I'm painting a picture for you, and it might not be the best picture, but if I allow your imagination to fill that in creatively, that could be very, very huge. But also, there are places where you don't want to be creative with your documentation, where you need to make sure everything is very precise, and particularly if you're following a detailed process, often called CYA, which is covering your rear. So my first story. Lead DBA for President Obama, working for the executive office. All the documentation is gone because every 4 years or 8 years, a new president comes in. And what do? They take all that communication, they put it in the National Archives, at least they used to. And one of the things that got picked up and put there was the documentation for everything. So I'm the new DBA, and I asked for 2 weeks, what are the list of all the SQL servers and Oracle servers and Postgres servers I need to work with? And I don't get an answer. And after 2 weeks, I stop asking because I know there's not a list anymore. And I have to rebuild all the technical documentation, including the business processes and who the business owners are. And then I have to go to CAB. And on the CAB, we have a lot of wonderful 3-letter agencies and sometimes 4-letter agencies that are often in movies and television that sit on this board and they get to review your technical changes. Once, to get a backup, I actually had to get an act of a congressional committee and a White House lawyer to sign off on it to restore a corrupted master database. I kid you not, restoring that database was an act of Congress. So all these people have to sign off on the changes you're about to make to their environment. And I did. But there was one key person that I didn't know who it was, and that was the business owner. And I changed these little package names because they didn't make any sense for what they were doing. I like things that make sense that should be in the name. Turns out those packages were run in order. Someone's job was literally to open up a sheet of paper and go through and execute them one at a time, because what they did was they produced the data set that fed a report that was the Office of the President budget that goes to Congress every single month. Well, as you know, with Obama, it was a Republican Congress, he was a Democratic president, there was some natural tension there, and Congress controls the purse strings. So they get to not only review the budget, but they also have to approve the budget. Not producing that budget could have been huge. And I find that out when I'm taking a bite of what turned out to be a very dry sandwich, and a nice lady shows up and goes, "Who the hell are you?" and said, "You could touch my server." I almost got walked out by the Secret Service, but I had covered every single process. I had documented everything. The NSA, the FBI, the CIA, everybody had approved what I had done, but I missed one person. Now let's fast forward 6 months later. I was building different development environments because some environments did not have them. And this same user who wanted me fired, I was sitting at my desk. By the way, there was like a whole shadow kind of hearing. I was at my desk till 8:30 that night. Every now and then the phone would ring. I would pick it up. I would answer questions. They would hang up on me before I could hang up. And then eventually I was told to leave my desk and I could come back the next morning. That was nerve-wracking. So this same user comes up, and this person has now executed these packages out of order. What do we have? We have logical corruption. The data is logically out of order. Now, of course, the user would just like me to go into production and make these changes to be able to get everything back, blah, blah, blah. And the government person is like, "That's a terrible idea," to which I also go, "That's a terrible idea. We don't do that in production. Hey, look at this nice new dev I built. We're going to put this in dev. We're going to test this. We're going to point the report server. We're going to validate it. And then we're going to get this done." And so with 2 weeks to go before the report, we spent a very busy week doing all of this, making sure we had it right, and then we moved the scripts to production, ran the scripts in production, everything was fine. I then got a meritorious award to the Executive Office of the President for being able to do that, and I was nominated by that same person who wanted me fired 6 months ago. Attention to detail matters, and at the right moment, it saves your life, and at another moment, it may reward you. You never know how that's going to turn out, so very key to understand the details. The next thing we're going to talk about is crucial accountability and the accountability conversation. So this is an absolutely fantastic book. If you have Audible, it is a little over 4 hours to listen to it. It talks about the structure of an accountability conversation. The first thing you have to do is you have to establish trust. You have to focus on the objective next. And that's the key. You don't talk about who said what and how they did these things. So if I want to establish trust with you, I need to share something personal. And it could be me going, "Look, I haven't always worked at Microsoft. And yeah, as a user, I've had tons of experiences pre-Microsoft where I was super angry at Microsoft for the stupid stuff they did. But what I would really do, if I'm trying to do it from a personal level, is I'm going to tell you about the worst moment of my life. The worst moment of my life was when my second son was born. His lung collapsed. They speed him out of the room. We don't know what's going on. We're very new parents. Our youngest son, or our oldest son, is only 9 months old at this point in time. Irish twins, for the timeline folks. So they speed him out. I go to try and figure out what's going on, and I'm getting the medical details so that way I can go back in and tell my wife. At which point in time, I have someone tapping me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's the doctor. And I think, "You're going to tell me more about the son." And I go, "Yes, I understand. It's this. And he goes, "What blood type are you?" And I go, I'm O negative. I'm the universal donor. He needs blood. Yeah, hook it up. Take all you need. I'm good." He goes, "No, it's for your wife." I go, "What?" And he goes, "We can't stop her bleeding. And she's O positive. We're running out of what we have on hand. We may need you to donate." And I go, "Absolutely." And I have this horrifying moment where I realize it's around Christmas time. We're supposed to be celebrating my first son's Christmas. My new son is early. I might be going home where all my family has flown in, where my little son is, to explain why I'm there alone. horrifying. When I am in a technical situation, there are often times when things are going very, very wrong, and I stay calm because nobody's dying. My kids are at home and they're safe. Worst case scenario, you're gonna get very mad at me and I may lose a job. I'll get another one, right? The things that matter, the reason we have these jobs, all of them are safe. So it's important to look at the point of view of the audience that you have and go, what do I need to share to be able to establish trust? We only have 20 minutes, and I want to make sure that you understand who I am and that I'm a genuine person. These are different things that I've encountered over my career, and my goal is just to be able to give them to you in a very quick form. Now, again, focusing on the objective, often people will get stuck on who said what, who did what, and they were wrong. Go back and admit you were wrong, and somebody doesn't want to admit they were wrong. If you just let that go, and it's hard, but if you let that go and you focus on the objective, you can actually move forward in situations. We need to accomplish the migration. We have to do it by this date. Doesn't matter who said what, how it got screwed up. If we have to work overnight, so be it. Let's get the work done. Let's make sure that we get past this. There may be a mistake, things will happen, but we focus on the objective and not what was wronged. In the accountability conversation, you may have to step out and have a second accountability conversation, a third, a fourth. The important thing is to step back into every single accountability conversation and finish that accountability conversation. Optional, you may have to establish consequences. And that's only in certain times. When I was a manager, it could be if someone wasn't living up to expectations and I had to say, hey, we've had this talk, this is the objective, this was what I need, just so you know, I can't have this happen again. If this happens again, here's what the consequence is. It's not that I want to beat you over the head with it, but I just need you to be informed that this could be a consequence. It could be with a customer. Well, everybody's going to be on vacation. We're going to delay that. That's great. You said we were going to migrate this weekend. If you're going on vacation, I have no problem with that. We have to move that back. And I'm fine moving that back, but just keep in mind, I'm on vacation next week. So you're not moving it back 1 week, but you're moving it back 2 weeks. Unless I'm not critical path, in which case, hey, take a week. But you might have to do that sometimes just to say, this is what we have to do to be able to understand the consequences of this. So second story, I'm brand new for Microsoft. I joined this team of Fast Track. We have the South Central data center outage. Let me run through this really quick. So what happened was we were putting on a new industrial chiller. We have fail-safes for fail-safes. However, lightning strikes the data center, crash. The power goes out. We fell over to a new power generator. Power comes back up, but the industrial chillers are offline. There's OSHA government certifications that must occur while you're bringing a new one online. The automatic failover system is off. Nobody thought, because we got 14,000 alerts for a staff of a little over 100. And those 14,000 alerts came in seconds. So nobody went, we need to go manually fail over the chiller. So there is no chiller on a data center. What happens? The temperature rises. It rises so hot, so fast, it believes it's on fire. It sounds alarms, evacuates the humans, sucks all the oxygen out of the room. By the way, that doesn't help things cool down. Things start to melt and break, and then you have to wait for the fire department to come in to actually clear the scenario, and then you can go in, begin assessing the damage, and then bringing things back up. There's a whole bunch of processes we built into Azure that weren't there beforehand. Places where we didn't have redundancies in place the way that we should, and we needed to give customers the options to be able to fail over. So I joined this team, and I volunteer because they go, we need to do customer confidence calls. And I go, great, I can help. And then I just assume somebody's going to tell me what a customer confidence call is. But nope, I get a couple of invitations, and I'm meeting C-level executives from very nice sized companies. And I call my boss and I go, help, I just volunteered for something, but I don't know what. And it is, I need to convince them that we are safe and secure. Please stay with Azure. Now, what I do is I get forwarded a copy of a recording of our internal triage, and I listen to all of it, and I'm told you can't use any of it, it's NDA. But in that recording, they go, we've got Ignite next week, and if we don't talk about this, well, it's going to be the elephant in the room because we're doing a session on how do you make data centers redundant in Azure. That's a good point. So they talk about it. Not only do they talk about it, they have new details on everything. And so I go and I listen to that. I email the whole team that's doing this, and I go, hey, not only can you mention this, here's the new details. And I build an accountability conversation. I walk in with those C-level executives, and I go, let me be completely transparent. Here's everything that happened. And step by step, I walk through it. Here's what we're going to do. These are the new things we're adding to Azure. Here's the redundancies we've got in place. And this is what we're going to do over the future. And just by being open and honest with people, it mitigated the situation. Most of them had managed data centers. They understood what it was to have a data center down, and they actually had sympathy for the people that had worked through that at that point in time. All right, last one, Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss. This is as close to understanding Jedi mind tricks as you can ever get. Christopher Voss is a former FBI hostage negotiator. It is a very compelling and very interesting read. He talks about mirroring, repeating things back to one another, labeling to be able to get things to go from your limbic caveman brain that's very emotional into the frontal neocortex that actually doesn't process emotion. So for example, if I'm angry, if I literally spell angry and see each word in big block letters, it will transfer that thought from the emotional center of my brain to the non-emotional center. It will help you to calm down so you can stay calm in certain situations. How you do minimal encouragers, paraphrasing, repeating things with inflection. I'm so angry at Microsoft. You're so angry at Microsoft? I need to know why you're angry, but I need you to tell me. I don't need to say why, so I can just open the floodgate. Saying no without saying no, know when to be aggressive and when not to, and at the end of this, it actually goes through the different types of people and how they negotiate and understanding their soft skills. So angry customers, this is a good one. I use this a lot. The negotiating thing is mainly about listening, but the personal one I'll tell you is there's a point in time before I had custody of my kids where my ex-wife now, when she got mad at me, she would just take away my ability to visit them. And that I had just read this book. She came back from a trip, wasn't very happy with me, and I'm driving over to pick up the kids, and she goes, nope, you don't get to see them. For 2 weeks, I didn't get to see my kids. Now, to be able to fix that process, it takes lawyers, courts, it's long, it's expensive. What I did instead was I called her, and I literally used every single trick in that book, and it's mainly through listening. And what she told me was what her and her new husband were facing and what their issue was, which is in this book, a black swan, the key thing you have to know. And I said, I can help with that. And once I said I could help with that, she went, okay, well, what is it you want? And I said, the exact same schedule where I get to see them 50% of the time. These are the days you work. I'll take them on the days you work. These are the days you off. You take them. And we just switch back and forth. That's all I want. And that day, I went and I picked up my kids. I can't give you a better testimonial than that. But again, remember, negotiating, mainly about listening. So what did we cover? On Writing by Stephen King for writing skills and soft skills. Crucial accountability to understand how we shape the accountability conversation. And Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss for listening and negotiation, because those two things are key. This QR code is your feedback. There's a link right there that can also do it, and you can do it in the app. Please give feedback. I always appreciate feedback if it's given, and it helps them decide whether they want folks like me to come back again next year. And I'm going to pause because I see people taking pictures or using the QR code. And I appreciate all of you that are out there doing that. Are we good? All right. And that's Tom Hanks, so thanks.